Okay, so we'll do the usual prayer. Om yo brahmanam vitadhati purvam yo ve vedamscha prahinoti tasmai tamhadevam atma buddhi prakasham mumukshurvai sharanamaham prapadye asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya prityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Gurave Sarvalokanam, Bhishaje Bhavaroginam, Nidhaye Sarvavidyanam, Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Okay. So last class we stopped with the discussion on the three levels of truth, which we called Paramarthika Satyam, Vyavaharika Satyam, and Pratibhasika Satyam. In English, absolute truth, transactional truth, and subjective truth. Or at another level, unconditional truth, conditional truth, and illusory truth. Okay, so these are some of the words that we used. So anybody having any difficulties up to this point? Not necessarily from last week's class, but up to starting from the very first until last week. Do we have any difficulties, questions, points that we need to revisit before we proceed? No one? Okay. Okay, I see no hands going up, so I presume everything is clear until now. So we'll go to the next set of our concepts. Today I'll talk now about what is called dependent existence and independent existence. Dependent existence and independent existence. And related to that is also what we call inherent property and incidental property. Incidental property and inherent property. Okay. Now, in Vedanta, the usual example that we take is a pot made of clay. Okay, a pot that is made of clay, mitti. Or we can also take an example, similar example, ornament made of gold or furniture made of wood. These are all some of the examples that we use. Now, imagine there is a pot and it's made of clay, and then you take all the clay out of this pot. So what is left? Any answer? Yeah, Subhashri ma'am.
Nothing.
Nothing actually.
That's obvious answer, no? I don't know why
Yeah.
it took
Vayu,
so much time.
air,
Yeah,
air
that's
is
obvious
left.
answer. Yeah. So if you take the clay out of the pot, there's nothing left. Okay. So even though we use two words, clay and pot, really speaking, there's only one object. There is only clay. So what is this pot? We say in Vedanta that this pot is merely a name and form.
Nama Rupa.
Nama Rupa. Yeah. So you give a certain shape to the clay, and that shape gets a name called pot. Okay. Similarly, in the case of the ornament and gold, you have different forms of ornaments. You have a necklace, you have a bangle, you have you have ear studs, and so on and so on. So all these ornaments, you take any ornament, and if you remove all the gold from the ornament, there is nothing left, because the word ornament does not indicate any material. the material that is there is gold, and then that ornament, whether you call it a chain or bangle or ear stud, it's all a name and form. Okay, so we say that in this particular example, the pot has a dependent existence, and that existence depends on the clay, whereas clay has an independent existence. Okay, so this is only for this example. If you examine the clay again doesn't have an independent existence. That existence of the clay depends on something else that we'll come to later. Okay, but here I want to convey this concept of dependent existence and independent existence. Okay, so the gold has an independent existence, whereas the ornament has an existence dependent on the gold. Okay, now if you go through the scientific approach, gold itself is dependent on its own configuration of electrons, protons and neutrons. Okay, so in the case of gold, from a scientific point of view, the electrons, protons and neutrons have an independent existence, whereas the gold molecule or the gold atom has an existence that is dependent on the electrons, protons and neutrons. That is the scientific point of view. But from a shastric point of view, we consider gold to be Prithvi, the earth. It's a part of the earth principle, because gold is extracted from iron and gold ore, which comes from the earth. Okay, that's the shastric view. So gold's existence depends on Prithvi, and then you have to remember our Srishti Prakaranam, where Akasha is the source of Vayu, Vayu is the source of Agni, and so on. So Prithvi has its origin from Jalam. Jalam has its origin from Agni. Agni has its origin from Vayu. Vayu has its origin from Akasha, and Akasha has its origin from Prakriti. So gold finally has a dependent existence. It's got a chain of dependencies, and ultimately Prakriti is the one which lends existence to gold. Okay, now the question comes, does Prakriti have an independent existence? We will park that question for now. Yeah, we will not go there because it requires a few more concepts. So right now I want you to understand that whenever we talk about any particular object in this creation, we ask this question: does it exist independently, or does its existence depend on something else? Okay, so if you understand the Srishti Prakaranam that I just talked about, Prakriti, from Prakriti comes Akasha, Akashat Vayu, Vayu or Agni and all that, you will be able to resolve everything into Prithvi. I mean Prakriti. Everything, anything and everything that you find around you will eventually have its origin in Prakriti. Okay, but whether Prakriti itself exists independently is a question we will not come to right now, but we will park it later. Yeah, we'll discuss it later. Okay, right. So that is dependent existence and independent existence. Okay, now let us go to the reflected consciousness that we had introduced in the last class. Okay, so we saw that there is this original consciousness which is infinite, not bound by space or time, and then you have the sattva guna of the mind which absorbs this consciousness. Then the mind interacting with consciousness produces this reflected consciousness. This reflected consciousness is, it is limited to the mind, but the mind itself can expand and contract because of the blessings of consciousness. Okay, now it is this reflected consciousness that gives consciousness and life to the body. The mind enlivens the Karana Shariram, that in turn enlivens the Sukshma Shariram, and that in turn enlivens the Sthula Shariram. So that is a chain that we talked about. This was all covered in previous week's class. Okay. Now, it is this consciousness that allows us to say I. All of us in this group, whoever is listening to me and me too, all of us can say I. I exist. I am talking. I am listening. That I, where does it come from? That is the mark of a conscious being. If you are conscious, you should be able to say I. It is exactly for the same reason that this table or chair or wall in front of you does not say I, we treat it as unconscious, at least at a practical level. Okay, it's a different story that they also have a small amount of sattva guna and all that, but that sattva guna is not treated as a mind. Okay, so that sattva guna has its limitations. We'll ignore that for the time being. So any conscious entity is capable of saying I. Okay, right? So that I has its source in the consciousness. Okay, is it clear? Is it too complicated? Does anyone have a question? Yeah, no questions? Okay, so the question is, we all have this I coming from inside. What is the source of this I? Is it the reflected consciousness, or is it the cosmic consciousness, original consciousness? What is the source? No one wants to try? Yeah, Subhashini ma'am?
Reflected consciousness.
Reflective, yeah.
Reflected consciousness. Okay.
So, what does the statement "Aham Brahmasmi" mean? Does that come from there?
Yeah, we will come to that. So that Aham Brahmasmi is to be discussed a little later, because really speaking, the reflected consciousness is not Brahman. Let us understand that. Brahman means infinite. Brahman means infinite, and the reflected consciousness is not unlimited. It is not infinite. It is finite, because it is a product of the mind and the cosmic consciousness interacting. Okay, so right, so 2 people or 3 people answered the reflected consciousness. That is a partially correct answer. Okay, so let us keep that question as central for our today's discussion, but I'll keep going back and forth, because I want you to bring this concept of independent existence and dependent existence to analyze this question. Okay, now, is the reflected consciousness independent in existence, or does it depend on something else for its existence?
Depends on original
Depends.
consciousness.
Yeah.
Depends on
Okay.
something.
So this reflected consciousness depends on 2 things for its existence. It depends on the mind and the original consciousness. So it's a product of interaction between 2 entities, exactly like your reflection in the mirror is a product of you, the original self, and the mirror. Only when you stand in front of the mirror, or when the mirror in front of you and the reflecting part of the mirror face is facing you, only then the reflection can be formed. So the reflection has an existence that is dependent on the original you. Similarly, the reflected consciousness does not exist independently. Its existence depends on the original consciousness and the mind. Okay. So, while you are right that the I comes from the reflected consciousness, that is, shall we say, the immanent source, but the real source of that I is the original consciousness. Okay, the real source is the original consciousness. So this reflected consciousness borrows the I from the original consciousness, and then it is able to convey that thought through the mind. Okay, right. So here I would like to introduce another concept which is required to completely understand this idea. Okay, so this idea I have just introduced, but I have not covered one more piece of knowledge or piece of concept which is required. Okay, so please, no, we have had 4 sessions so far, and this is the 5th session. So please treat all these pieces of concept that I have given in all these 4 or 5 classes as pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. You will have to put all the pieces together to get a complete picture. So everything that I have talked about in the past few classes will all be required to bring together and create that bigger picture, which will give you the complete philosophy. Okay, so this is one more that we have to understand now. See, the cosmic consciousness, the original consciousness, I said, is infinite. In fact, all of space and time is contained within that original consciousness, and that original consciousness is Brahma or Brahman. Okay, and in the Upanishads it is given some names, other names also. It's called Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam. Satyam means truth, and here the truth represents the Paramarthika Satyam, the absolute truth. Then Jnanam, here Jnanam does not mean knowledge. Here Jnanam means consciousness, awareness. Okay, that universal consciousness is just pure awareness. And Anantam, Anantam is unlimited, infinite. Okay, and when I said infinite, it is not limited by space or time. Okay, and it exists independently, and it is the source of existence for everything else. It is a source of existence for Prakriti also. So we use another word, we say that Prakriti borrows existence from Brahma, or we say that Prakriti has a dependent existence, existence dependent on Brahma or Satyam or Chaitanyam. Okay, but even though Brahman has independent existence, that Brahman cannot perform any action. That Brahman cannot perform any action. That you have to understand. Why is that so? It is so because we have already said that Brahman is beyond space and time. Brahman is beyond space and time. That means Brahman does not change within space or time. We also have this word called nirvikaram. Nirvikaram means devoid of any change. Okay, Brahman is nirvikaram. Okay, now if you take any change, now I'm moving my hand, that's a change. I'm talking, so my tongue goes through a change, my vocal cord goes through a change. When we say change, it can change in time or it can change in space or both. Okay, so whenever we talk about change, there is a change from something to something, and that from and to itself denotes time. 2 minutes before, some object was here on the table. 2 minutes later, that object is on the floor. So from the table to the floor, there is a spatial change, and the change from the table to the floor also happens in time. So whenever we talk of change, it has to be a change in either space or time or both. Usually time is always involved. Sometimes space may not be involved, but time is always involved. So for instance, when a plant grows, the plant is at the same place, it doesn't change, but it grows, and the change that you see in terms of space is that maybe the width is increasing or the height is increasing. Okay. So whenever we talk of change, that change has to be within space and time, but we saw that the Brahman or Chaitanyam actually is beyond space and time. That means it is beyond change. So because it is beyond change, Brahman cannot perform any action. So it is akarta. Brahman is really akarta. So where do we then see all this action coming from? Because this world is full of action, right? So if Brahman cannot act, where does the action come from? Here is what we have to understand. All the action that we see are actually due to Prakriti. Because Prakriti is also infinite. Prakriti is also infinite, but it is capable of changing. Okay, so what kind of an infinite is Brahman, which is incapable of changing? And what kind of an infinite is Prakriti, which is capable of changing? So that is the, shall we say, paradox that we have to explain or understand. Okay, I will not go deep into that now, but for now, take it that both Prakriti and Chaitanyam, we also use the word Purusha for Chaitanyam. So whenever we use Prakriti, it is a complementary word is Purusha for Chaitanyam, okay, or Brahman. So Purusha is infinite, not capable of changing, whereas Prakriti is infinite but capable of changing. Purusha is capable of existing independently. Prakriti cannot exist independent of Purusha. So this is how they are sort of interconnected. So the connection between Purusha and Prakriti is like this. So Purusha can exist independently but cannot act. Prakriti can act but cannot exist independent of Purusha. Okay. So all the action that we witness, any action, whether it is your action or my action or somebody else's action, every action that you see around you is attributed to Prakriti. And Prakriti is capable of changing. Okay, now coming to this I feeling, the cosmic consciousness cannot even say I, even though the true source of that I feeling is the cosmic consciousness. As I said, the cosmic consciousness cannot perform any action. So saying I is also an action. and the cosmic consciousness, Brahman, Chaitanyam, cannot perform even that action to even say that I exist. It requires the mind and the organs of action, or the mind to simply think that I exist. Okay, so this is the crux of this I feeling, and how Prakriti or the mind, in this case the mind, because Prakriti is a larger thing, whereas it is a reflection or reflected consciousness is a product of the mind. So of course mind is made of Prakriti, that's a different story. But the sattva guna of the mind, which reflects the consciousness, due to the interaction between the mind and the original consciousness, the reflected consciousness comes into play, and it is that reflected consciousness which says I. But because it is not an independent entity from an existence point of view, it is, shall we say, it's some kind of a proxy. It's some kind of a proxy for the original consciousness which says I. So it is not the real you. The real you is the original consciousness, but it is because we cannot, through just logic, we cannot figure out the existence of an independent cosmic consciousness and a dependent reflected consciousness. For knowing that also you need the Shastras. Okay, it is because of the Shastras that we know that there are actually two entities. Otherwise, if you just go by pure logic, you cannot even know that there are two entities. Okay, now I will give you a few more axioms. I'll give you a few more axioms which will help us to understand this a little better. Okay, so the first axiom is, anything that you can objectify is not you. Anything that you can objectify is not you. Yeah, I hope you are writing it down. I'll explain what is objectify, what I mean by objectify, but for those of you who understand, that should be pretty evident. Anything that you can objectify is not you. And then corollary of this, you can mark it 1A or whatever, anything that you possess is not you. Because what you can possess, you can objectify. So that's just a extension or corollary. Okay, now when I say objectify, it means whatever you can see, touch, hear, smell, taste. These are the ways you can objectify anything. These are only the 5 ways. There is no 6th way. Or you can say, oh fine, you can think of something. When you can think of something, that's also objectification. So there's a 6th way. So anything that you can, make an object of your sense organs or an object of your thought, that's not you. Is this clear, or is there any doubt? Yeah, I think it was pretty straightforward. Yeah, Shwetambriji.
That is to say, our thoughts are not us, right?
That is a corollary.
That is the corollary.
That is a corollary. Yeah.
Yes, the senses is not us. What we sense is not us, but our thoughts are also not us.
No, your thoughts are
Then,
not you.
okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it easy to understand, or is it
Yes.
creating some problems?
No. It is easy to understand. Thank you.
Okay. So anything that you can objectify is not you. Anything that you possess is not you. Okay. Now it's obvious that you can see your body, so your body can be objectified. Your body is not you. Okay. your pranamaya kosha, the fact that you are hungry, you are thirsty, you are tired, all that you are aware of. So you are objectifying your hunger, you are objectifying your thirst, you are objectifying your tiredness. So pranamaya kosha is not you. Okay. Then you can objectify your happiness, anger, disappointment, all emotions. So, and all these emotions come from your manomaya kosha. So the manomaya kosha is not you. Okay. And all your knowledge pieces, yeah, whatever maths, physics, chemistry, economics, everything that you learned from your school to college days, all those pieces of knowledge you can objectify. So they are not you. Okay. And your thoughts, your imagination, everything can be objectified because you are able to observe your thoughts. So your thoughts are not you. Okay. Now, what is the relationship between thought and mind? Does anyone want to try? What is the relationship between thought and mind? No one?
You can't have thoughts without mind. Like the product of the mind, or they come from.
Yeah, that's a descriptive answer. I want a clear distinction. Okay, what is thought? What is mind? How are they connected? Can anybody try? Yeah, Subhashini ma'am.
Thoughts arise from mind,
Mhm.
and thoughts are subjective to what the present things also. What I mean, the mind is vast, and it is not under my control, but thoughts are under my control.
Come again. Can you repeat that?
The mind is vast.
Mhm.
I can explore it, but the thoughts I can control, but the mind I cannot control. I can focus it at one place, but still the mind exists.
Yeah. So, Sridhar sir, you have raised your hand.
Yeah, it is more like the mind is the perceiver and the thoughts are the reactions or the
Okay.
outcome of the perception, right?
Okay. Now, Rani ji has raised her hand. Rani ji.
So, thoughts are coming from the experiences of the mind, isn't it?
Okay. Thoughts are coming from the experiences of the mind. Now you are introducing a third word, experience. Okay. Right. So, I mean, all of you, whatever you have said, you have kind of described some phenomenon connected to the mind, but you have still not brought out the exact relationship between thought and mind. Okay. Shruti ji, please.
Sir,
You
I
raised your
think,
hand.
yeah. So I think thought is actually the real physical thing that one feels.
Hmm.
And mind is something which is actually independent. It has something. It's the real essence of our Chaitanya. So it's immobile, nirankar, nirvikar.
No,
But
no,
thoughts
no.
is something which is
Mind is not
surround.
nirvikar. Sorry. Mind changes
Okay.
violently. Mind changes violently. That's why we
Acha.
have this expression called manovegam. We have in
Hmm.
Sanskrit
Hmm.
vayuvega manovegam. That means the
Acha.
mind can travel very fast. Sitting here, your mind can travel in 1 second or less than a second to Mumbai and come back.
Hmm.
Okay, or
Yeah.
Delhi or wherever your connections are. Okay,
Hmm.
so mind can change violently. So nirvikar is not something that is applicable to the mind. Subhashini ma'am, you raised your hand again.
I'm thinking of putting the answer like this. Mind always tells the same thing what I know. The thoughts can be new though.
Okay, let's have one more expression from Rani ji, then I'll start with my answer. Yeah, Rani ji, you said something.
Yeah, mind, you are saying, you mean manas. Mind is like
Yeah, manas.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, so it's like this. Yeah. So let us leave the thought for a minute away. Let's talk about the mind alone. Yeah. In the very first class, I said that mind consists of matter. Mind is made of matter, and mind is predominantly or 99% sattva guna. So it is, mind is an entity, it's a physical entity, it's a concrete entity which exists. Yeah, it's something like your physical body, but it's a subtle body, it's a part of subtle body, and it is made of material. It's a material existing entity, and it reflects the original consciousness through the reflected consciousness, which we call chid abhasam. And together with the mind and the reflected consciousness, it is capable of expanding and contracting. So the mind can expand and contract. Okay. So when you are in a dream state, the mind is partially active by moving through some of the nadis in the body. When you are in deep sleep state, the mind is completely contracted and it goes into your heart, which is the seat of your mind. And when you are in a completely wakeful state, your mind expands to fulfill the entire body, and it is capable of extending itself beyond your body also. The mind can travel outside the body also, and the way the Shastras define how we perceive things is like this: the mind flows out through your sense organs and it reaches the object of your perception, and it covers or wraps the object of your perception, and then it takes the shape of that object, and that taking a particular shape of a particular object results in that particular thought. Okay. Now, this sentence might sound very complicated. I'll just give you by a small example. Okay, you are looking at a pot. You know, in Vedanta, we use the pot very often because it's a very simple example. You know, you have a pot, you are looking at a pot, and you have a pot thought. Okay, so how does this pot thought come? The pot thought comes when your mind travels out through your eyes, reaches the pot, and it covers the pot, and thereby it assumes the shape of that pot, and that shape of the mind, which is identical with the shape of the pot, is witnessed by the original consciousness. And that witnessing of the original consciousness, or witnessing by the original consciousness of the mind in that particular shape, results in the experience of a pot or the thought of a pot. So Raniji, you introduced the word experience. So this is how the three are related. The shape of the pot that the mind assumes is the thought, the pot thought. And the witnessing of this mind in this particular shape is the experience of the pot. Okay, similarly, let's say you are listening to some piece of music. Okay, so how is the music experience or music perception explained in this framework? There is a music playing, the mind reaches out through your ears it covers the music and takes the shape of the music. Now you may wonder what is the shape of a music. So if you can't adjust or digest the word shape of the music, you can take it takes a configuration that matches the music. And when the mind assumes a configuration that matches the music, the original consciousness witnesses that mind, and that results in the experience of music. And whatever I said in the last 3 or 4 minutes about the pot experience and the music experience, this is the Shastric theory of knowledge. This is the Shastric explanation of how do you know what you know. This is the theory of knowledge in the Shastras. This is the theory of perception. So let me repeat: the mind travels outside through the sense organs towards the object of experience, covers the object of experience, and that mind, which has assumed the shape of the object of experience, is witnessed by the original consciousness, and that results in the experience of that object. And we also call it object thought. It could be a pot thought, it could be a music thought, it could be a paneer butter masala thought if you are eating that, or it could be a rasagulla thought, or it could be a sandesh thought. Yeah, whatever thought, or it could be a smell thought. Yes, Shvetambari, sorry, Kishori ji, you had a question. Yeah, please unmute yourself. Your hand is raised, but you have not spoken. I mean, did you raise your hand by mistake, or you still want to say something?
Yeah. How does one explain the role of light in experiencing this pot? In case there is no light in the room, your mind can still travel to the pot, but can one see it or experience it?
No. See, you that's a good question. Okay, see, in the scientific world, they say that the light is reflected from the pot, and it reaches your eyes, it goes to the retina, and from there some nervous signals go to the brain.
Naturally, yes, that is
Yeah, that is the
exactly why I'm
scientific
asking.
explanation. Yeah, that is
Yes.
the scientific explanation. But if the scientific explanation is really true, you will not see that pot outside, you will see the pot in your head. Okay.
No, I don't understand that. What do you mean? How I
No,
don't understand.
when you see a pot or when you see a
Yes,
picture, that
yes,
picture is clearly outside. There is a distance between you and that pot or picture. Okay. But if the scientific explanation of the perception is true,
yes.
then whatever image is formed in your brain. So your perception should not indicate anything outside. So it is like this: the light is required. The light is required to make the pot evident.
Visible.
Yeah, I will use the word evident. Okay. Now, what makes that evident pot visible is your mind turning to that pot. Because imagine you are standing in a very crowded place, maybe a bus stand or a railway station, where you are expecting somebody to you are receiving somebody, and so you are looking for that person in the crowd.
Yeah.
And then as you are doing that, a very good friend of yours just comes and stand right in front of you, but you don't notice him. So even though he is right in front of you, you don't notice him. Why? Because your mind is not available to perceive this person, your mind through your eyes is busy perceiving something else. Okay, so even though the light from that person who's your friend standing in front of you is actually hitting your eyes, it is not creating any perception in you, because your eyes and your mind are not focused on this person, it is focused on somebody else. So even though light is available, you don't see everything, you only see what your mind focuses on.
I would say that one sees only that what you look at.
Now, what is
Eh,
your definition of looking at? When you say
I
looking
mean,
at,
I
what do you mean by
understand
that?
you. Yes, I understand your point that your mind has to be there, but I still do not understand quite this.
See,
Yeah,
it is, it is a question of taking the Shastric version and applying it in various situations. Okay, now
yeah, yeah.
I can give you a few examples. Now you have, because of the light, because of the requirement of light, you are asking this question about, why do you say mind goes out? Let's talk about music.
Yeah.
Now, in the case of music, you don't need light,
Yes.
right? In the case of any sound, you don't
Yes.
need light.
Yeah.
Okay, but very often you are busy thinking of something, and somebody is talking to you and you still don't listen to them, you don't know what they talk. Why? if if the travel of the sound just into your ears is enough for perception, then you should be able to hear everything that's being talked about, even though you're thinking. So the reason is, see, the
I
mind,
understand. I
yeah,
understand now.
the mind can only do one thing at a time.
Yes.
Okay, the mind is capable of doing only one thing at a time, even though
That
it has
yes.
5
That
sense
means
organs.
yes. That means here experiencing and seeing are two different things. You might see it, but you may not experience it unless your mind is in it.
No, if let's say you have been waiting in a bus stand and you have been looking for your relative to arrive. This friend, who's very well known to you, he's standing in front of you, maybe 2 feet away, 3 feet away, and he tries to draw your attention for 2, 3, 4 minutes, but you are somehow completely absorbed in looking for your relative, and then he
Exactly.
kind of walks away.
Yeah.
Okay, imagine.
Yeah. Yeah.
This can happen, right? This is not an
Yes.
impractical situation.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
he has
Yes.
been in front of you for 4 minutes, he's tried to
y-
wave his hand and so
Yes.
on, and you still haven't seen him.
Yeah.
If
That is
you have seen
exactly.
him,
Yes.
if you have
Yes.
seen him, you would have experienced him.
Yes. Yes.
So, what we say from a Shastric point of view is,
Yeah.
you can experience only what you see. If there is
No.
no
Only.
experience, you have
Only
not
if
seen.
you. Only if your mind is on that person. If
That
your
is
mind
what,
travels to that
no,
object,
no.
then only you experience
That is exactly
that
what we
person.
mean by
Mm.
experiencing. When we
Yeah.
say experience, it
Yeah.
means that your mind is fixed on that particular
Yeah.
event.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so an event happens. There are
Yeah.
two words. There
Yeah.
is an event and there is an experience.
Mm.
So the event can happen
Happen, but
without you
experience, yes.
experiencing it.
Yeah. Yeah. I got your point.
Yeah. So the point to remember is, even though the mind has 5 different openings
Yeah.
called sense organs, through
Yeah.
which it can perceive
Yeah.
the world,
Yeah.
it cannot operate in parallel, or it cannot operate simultaneously through all the 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
It can only operate through one at a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so whenever you experience something, it means that your mind has chosen to use
Yeah.
that
That is
particular
exactly.
object
Yeah. Yeah.
as an object of experience.
Mm. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and the point is, no matter which sense organ your mind is traveling through,
Yeah.
the consciousness will witness only the mind.
Yeah. Hmm.
The consciousness cannot witness anything else, because as I said in the very beginning,
Yeah.
the only connection to the consciousness with this body
Yeah.
is your mind.
Yes. Yes.
So
It's clear. It's
Yeah.
it's really clear now. Yes.
Yeah, and that also explains why when 10 people watch the same movie,
Yeah.
not all of them have the same experience.
Exactly. Exactly. Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Very
So
well.
10 people can watch the same movie. Somebody is praising the movie to skies, and
Yes.
somebody says, "Oh, it's all
Yeah.
all bakwas."
That
Okay.
is true.
So what you see and what you perceive,
Perceive are two
yeah,
different things.
what you
True.
perceive and
True.
experience
Very true. Very true.
actually is filtered through your mind.
Very true.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that is exactly how the difference in experience is explained, even though
Yes.
all of us see the same thing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Very well. Very well explained. Yes.
So this is the theory of knowledge.
Yeah.
Incidentally, so why I wanted to bring this is,
Yeah.
now if you go through this structure of theory of knowledge,
Yeah.
you will see that you're actually objectifying your mind all the time.
Yes.
Your consciousness, original consciousness, is objectifying the mind all the time.
Yeah.
So the mind is also not you.
Mm.
You are not the mind.
Yeah.
Because you are objectifying the mind, you are able to objectify your thought.
Yeah.
So the mind and the thought are not actually different.
Yeah.
A thought is a particular configuration that your mind takes up for a
Yes.
given moment.
Yes. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. And
Very well.
when you say experience, it
Yeah.
is your consciousness witnessing that state of the mind and you
Yes.
experience it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
this is for today.
Yeah.
We will build upon this in the next class. So I think we have one more session on 10th of July before you break for summer.
Yeah.
So Mrinalini ji, I hope I'm right, because you had told me that 17th also we'll have not 17th, 10th.
Yes, right.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Right.
10th, we'll have next Wednesday would be the last session.
Yeah. After that, it will be sometime in September, you said. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So we will try to reach some kind of a milestone conclusion in the next class. And so today I have sort of covered whatever I thought I should cover, and we will do the rest in the next week. Okay. So if there are any questions, anybody, we can have a short discussion. Otherwise, we'll chant our closing prayers and complete today's class. Anybody? Yeah, Rani ji.
Vasudevanji, that means when the newborn baby, it won't have any thoughts.
No. The newborn baby will have thoughts. Why do you think it won't have thoughts? It has a mind, right?
Uh-huh. Okay,
Yeah, it will have thoughts, definitely.
okay. Yeah.
But it may not. It may not remember all those thoughts as it grows up. But definitely at that moment it will have some thoughts.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah, Subhashini ma'am.
Sir, so the conclusion you want to say is the mind and thought are not different.
Yes, the mind and thought are not really different. That's right. The mind is a stuff of which the thoughts are made. It's exactly like clay and pot. When the clay gets a particular shape, it's called a pot. So similarly, when the mind takes up a particular shape, it's called that thought.
Okay, fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Right. So I presume all questions are answered, or no more questions. So we'll chant the closing prayers and conclude today's class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarvepi Sukhinas Santu Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. Thank you so much. We'll meet next.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.